Hello everybody, welcome to the channel. For those of you who are tuning in for the first time, welcome. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. For those of you returning to the channel, I am doing something a little different today, which is giving my thoughts on a recently released game from Capcom called Kunitsu Gami, Path of the Goddess. And the best way to describe this game is basically a 3D game with an old school Capcom 2D action game feel to it. And with that being the gameplay being so close to a 2D action game, it meant that it would be short. And I think to compensate for that, what Capcom did was added some strategy gameplay mechanics, which may or may not work for you. It surely didn't do it for me because I'm not a fan of strategy titles. But that's the best way to describe this. Well, at first, my first impression was when I first started engaging with this game was it feels like old school Capcom 2D action, like the Mega Mans, the Striders, for those of you who are old enough to remember those games. The action was spot on, the music blended nicely, some Oriental type tunes that would again remind you of the older 2D action slashers like Shinobi, the Ninja Gaidens and stuff like that, games like that. The graphics are incredibly good. As you know, on this channel I play games or focus on games with the best graphics. So, but 10 minutes into the game I was really impressed. I was into the action, but then later on, when I was hit with those strategy segments, I was kind of turned off because I'm not a fan of strategy titles, and for the reasons that I'm going to mention, such as the pace went from a fast-paced action hack and slash type game to very slow, strategic, really point and click type segments. When you do that, not only does that happen, but the main character Yashiro moves incredibly slow, or she doesn't respond to your commands at all. I don't know if that's going to be patched later, or maybe it was something I was doing incorrectly, but I think I was doing everything the instructions said I was supposed to do. But she wasn't responding to my commands, and when she did, she moved incredibly slow, which Now here's one of the things that I was really impressed with, the boss battles. Now, if you've been browsing my videos, you're pretty aware that, or you know that I have a 4090 based rig. I'm not going to go into the full specs because the graphics card really highlights the system's capability. But as you see here, I typically run most of my games for the best quality at 8K between DLS balance and performance mode, depending on how visually intensive the graphics engine is. So, as you see here, there was tons of enemies on screen, and even at 8K, this graphics card did not dip below 60 frames per second, or that much below 60 frames per second. And I think 60 FPS, I'm one of those guys that think 60 FPS is super important for that arcade feel and that intense action. The action, frame rate, intense action is important to frame rate. Not so much cinematics, but action sequences. It really does give you more of an arcade-like experience at that frame rates at 60 or higher. But as you see here, the frame rate does not budge much. And I thought that was impressive with a game that looks as good as this does. Now here's where the game starts to really slow down. The pace comes to a crawl. It's at this point when you're first introduced to the strategy gameplay mechanic. Blending this 3D action hack and slash with a strategy title. Not only do you have to set up these several villagers with different skills and place them strategically on points that will benefit your combat against the enemies. The most important character, Yashiro, is also stuck at the entrance. She's awaiting your commands to either stop or move, and sometimes she doesn't respond to those commands. And when she does decide to respond to your move command, she moves incredibly slow. It's a day and night time cycle where the enemies come out at night and they disappear throughout the day. And she is more than likely going to take more than a day or night cycle to move along that path to complete the level. So this part of the game is incredibly slow. Now here's what I was talking about when I mentioned Shiro moving painfully slow. Once you clear the path, she doesn't walk down, but she sort of does this dance, this magical dance all the way down, which slows the pace of this game down so much. I almost turned it off at this point. It had me wondering that if they did this to lengthen the game, as I said before, because typically 2D type games are pretty short, like I also mentioned before. And when I look at Game Pass, it says this game is about 16 hours long, and I would like to believe that without this strategy sequence, it would probably cut that playtime down by half. Because if you just look at it, it's ridiculous. But there's actually some action coming up, which is a boss fight that's pretty interesting. So here's the boss fight I was talking about earlier. The music is pretty good, pretty decent. Just does set the tone. Does generate, just add to the atmosphere of mysticism. Give you the feel of really being in a spiritual realm or spiritual aspect of the setting. So again, the music is spot on. I really like the soundtrack for this title. The Oriental themed music, which just brings me back to the Shinobis and Ninja Gaidens, the Striders. So to my viewers, are you guys old enough to have played those games? Maybe you've played those games on emulation, through emulation, sorry. Let me know in the comments below. So at this point, enjoy the rest of the video, and thanks for watching.